We're talking about my top 10 loadouts. Obviously, I went through that website that covers a bunch of different loadouts, but people still wanted to have my top 10. So that's what we're doing today. So we start off with number 10, the experimental build. And right here, you can see it's a Hipfire only build for the PPSH. It's a little bit more experimental because it is kind of one of those things that's fun. It's not always the most competitive because there are scenarios where it would be helpful to aim down sight, but this one kind of throws that out and you get reasonable Hipfire kills up to about 15 to 20 meters, which is insane for a Hipfire build. We're using the recoil booster with the Empress Rapid Slate 2.5X with the removed stock, tight grip, quick, pine tar grip, as well as the Gorenko 71. You could swap this out, a little bit faster fire rate, a little bit less damage, kind of ends up evening out. I'd rather have a little bit more damage per mag with the Gorenko, so really up to you. Incendiary and then the pistol grip. Whole point of the build is to never aim down sight, only hip fire, and it will make your hip fire spread almost like a dot when you're not moving. If you slide into it, it will spread a little bit more, but all these are designed to help with that. One thing that I get asked quite a bit with the builds is, why aren't we using a suppressor? Why aren't we using a suppressor? Obviously, suppressors have kind of been the go-to forever when it came to modern warfare and Cold War weapons, but that's because there really wasn't anything competing. If there was an option for rapid fire, which statistically makes the gun kill faster, you're going to use that. Next up is the XM4, and you could substitute a lot of weapons, obviously, on this list. You got Agency Suppressor, Task Force 3X, Field Agent Grip, and the 60-round mag. But you could easily swap this out for tons of modern warfare guns and other Cold War guns, and even a few Vanguard guns that didn't make the list, whether you want to use the BAR, the NZ41, maybe you want to use the regular M4, or you want to use the Kilo or the Grau. There are a lot of weapons that you could use, especially if you know where their damage drop-offs. I've seen a lot of people using M13s recently, even though nothing's changed on it. It's just a super easy weapon to use and a little bit more noob-friendly, I would say. So it kind of depends on your skill level. Perks, we're rocking EOD, or even Cold-Blooded Counter Combat Scout. That's kind of what a lot of people are kind of leaning towards now, but EOD is still super valuable, especially with the changes they've made to lethals. Overkill, obviously, but if you're going to not go with the Overkill, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about those when we switch over. And then Combat Scout is generally the go-to unless you're using slow weapons. You can use amped, or you can use an attachment to solve for that on some of the Vanguard weapons. And then lethal, whatever you want to use. And then the heartbeat sensor, stim, or stun grenades are pretty much the main go-tos. Snapshot grenades are super powerful too with multi-level buildings, but you really got to kind of know how to use them and probably run that combined with restock to get the maximum effectiveness. Next up is loadout number 9, and this is usually our ghost, restock, tempered loadout. You can kind of swap any of those out. Like I said, I would cover that in this next section. You can use restock, high alert. This is kind of the one where you'd mix and match. You can use whatever. This is normally a pistol. I usually run the amp or the Diamatti, but because of the little Harry Potter people flying around the map cheaters, I got this class just in case so I can see them. I can lock on from pretty much any vantage point and you'll be able to get those kills in because it's going to be able to target that vehicle. Then I got the STG with here, Mercury Silencer, VDD 760. We got the 2.5X, the precision for the stock. You could also use weighted. Vital's generally the way to go. And then we got fully loaded, obviously, because this is our ghost class or whatever, our second perk class. Polymer helps with the recoil, 60-round mag, lengthen for the bullet velocity, and the Carver, especially after it got buffed. Now we're getting into the top 8. We have the Sten and the Automaton. Sten is highly underrated. If you've actually had a chance to use it, you know how good this thing is. For this one, again, with a lot of Vanguard ones for close range, since we're not really trying to laser people at 100 meters, recoil booster is generally the way to go, even though you're sacrificing a suppressor. Then we got the rapid, which makes it even faster. We got this one, you could use an iron sight or you can use an optic. Slate reflector is good too. The Guy 1 Para, which is kind of like a collapsible stock type thing. And then we also have acrobatic, which is for movement and sprinting. And then quick, so we get the better sprint speed, so that combines with that. And then we got the grooved, which helps with a little bit of accuracy. But the main thing is that horizontal recoil. This thing primarily has a little bit of horizontal. You kind of pull just down. It's relatively easy to use. 50-round drum, incendiary, and the skeletal stock for the faster aim down sight to offset the groove. What I thought would kind of take over the Bren spot, Bren wasn't nerfed quite enough, is the Type 11. We have here the MX Silencer, Shrouded, which still has that infinite damage range attachment, and that'll probably get nerfed at some point. The 3 to 6X, Warubachi, weighted, sleight of hand, that actually comes in clutch if you're using this weapon, fully loaded or whatever other perk too. Polymer for the recoil. Then we're rocking the 90-round drum as well as lengthen and hand stop. Another sniper support build here at number 7, AS44. A lot of fun to use. I think it still kind of gets slightly beat out in versatility of the Cold War and the Cooper. And then for this build, we got the Mercury Silencer. You'll see the barrel's empty. We'll talk about that. Slate reflector, the 12B custom momentum on hand, stippled. the 60 round mag, lengthen, and then hand stop. There is also a nice Hipfire build that I put together on my spreadsheet. If you want to check that out, it's in there. And then the barrel, you can either go without a barrel, which is fine because a lot of these are kind of wonky with how you're going to use them. And then you could also go with this bottom one, which gives you a faster fire rate, but does hurt the accuracy even more. So that'd be kind of the way to go. It's either no barrel or that. And that'll allow you to have a competitive TTK. Just be aware that this recoil is kind of nuts and would almost feel like more like an SMG, but it's not fast enough to be an SMG. So you kind of end up with a little bit of a mid-range where it kind of be a little bit rough if you commit to that barrel. And then we have the Swiss, which standard build, GRU, combat, laser, bruiser grip, and then serpent wrap. And then with that, we're rocking amped, so we can go ahead and swap weapons a little bit faster since the Cold War guns don't have that attachment. Then we have the Cooper and the Swiss, and this is the Cooper is probably one of the most versatile weapons right now. It's kind of like the XM4 when it was the supreme meta. People were using it as an SMG and combining that with like the Milano, whatever, for long range, which is still good, by the way. And then you have the Cooper right here, which pretty much everything's built for rate of fire. And then there's a couple different things you can do here, which we'll talk about in a quick second. So we got recoil booster, Gracie rapid, slate reflector, remove stock, leather grip, 60 round compressed rounds, and then we also have the hand stop. The big thing here is tight grip. This will remove like 90% of all the recoil. You could go vital because maybe you want to feel like you want to do a little bit more damage, but you're going to sacrifice a little bit of that recoil control. So it really depends on your skill level. I would say that the vast majority of people should go tight grip, and this thing will feel like you have it stacked out with all the recoil attachments for how you're going to be able to beam with the slate reflector. Swiss, same exact build that we just went through. Then we got Cold War AK-47, which is still one of my favorite sniper support options. GRU, Spetsnaz, 45 mag, serpent wrap with the LED, microflex LED. So straightforward build there, kind of what we had tried and true. Then the Car 98, you got a couple different things, monolithic, 27.6, tac laser, sniper scope. And then you can kind of really mess around with this. If you don't really feel like you need the flinch resistance, don't worry about focus. If you do want to have a little bit faster aim down sight, and go with the sport comb or the precision, which was kind of meta for the while. Focus is just a good alternative, especially since they did increase flinch by a significant amount. Then we get to the Owen Gun, which I'm not particularly a fan of. I've used it a couple times. It feels good with the build, but I feel like, I would just be better off if I used almost any other SMG in terms of consistency because of slow rate of fire. But it does get helped out by a recoil booster. We got the slate reflector, remove stock, fleet, quick, fabric, as well as the 72 round mag and incendiary and the skeletal. This thing doesn't have a lot of recoil, so you can kind of stack on the stuff that's going to help with aim down sight. One little trick, because this kind of does have a broken mag, is to use something like the combo right here with the slate reflector. It will be a little bit slower aim down sight, but all you do is you aim down sight and then you switch to the reflex sight and it'll hide the mag out of the way, even though with this particular build the mag isn't as blocking as some of the other options there are. And the EM2, which is still pretty nasty, but in this place, like I said, you could include the bar and a few other long range options. Just you only get 10 loadout slots, so this is what I would use. Agency suppressor, task force, 3x, field agent, and 40 round mag. Pretty straightforward builds there. OTS C58 is kind of making a comeback. OTS has always been good. It's kind of competitive with the MP40. Biggest difference is that 5 bullets on the mag. Other than that, it's fairly even and kind of comes down to preference. It does still slap though. We got GRU suppressor, task force, skeletal, serpent, and then the 40 round fast. You could get rid of stock if you want Tiger Team Spotlight, if you like that extra movement speed versus the skeletal stock. Again, preference. And the C58 is still very dominant. Like I've said in the past, the C58 was kind of even with the EM2 when it was a little bit busted and overpowered. And then once it got nerfed, this didn't get touched. So it's still pretty good. Field agent grip and the 45 round drum. And that's going to bring us to number 2, which is the Welgun. In my opinion, the Welgun is the second best SMG, or tied for first, however you want to look at it. There's scenarios where it'll beat the MP40, and there's scenarios where the MP40 will beat it. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how it goes, and it's kind of that trade-off. It's not like one beats the other 100% of the time, because it doesn't. Recoil booster, the Gawain short with slate reflector, remove stock, frenzy, quick. And then we got polymer, but then here's where you get the option. You can either go with the 48 round mag, or you can go with the 64 round mag. Both of them have very similar TTKs, which I broke down. Just a matter of preference. I would avoid the Gorenko. I think the Gorenko is pretty good in actual Vanguard, but not so much in Warzone. And then we have the hand stop. So pretty straightforward build, even though the FOV, I think they're going to change it like they did with the PPSH, because it still looks a little bit weird when you aim down sight with the weapon. And then we have the long range Cooper carbine, which is the MX silencer, Cooper custom, 2.5x or 3 to 6x, your preference. Cooper 45W, tight grip for the reasons I mentioned, fully loaded, polymer, 60, lengthen, and then we also have the hand stop. So this is kind of more built for long range engagements, a little bit slower fire rate than the build we had, but that's okay. You need to hit your shots. And TTK is still pretty competitive with this weapon. You could swap out a lot of these weapons with close range and long range, and that is really kind of what. So the Welgun could go with the STG, which we already talked about. You could swap out the Type 11 with the Bren. These are all kind of interchangeable and they're going to go based off feel. Nice thing about the current meta is there are some options where one person might like one over the other, and they're both really good. But the meta builds, I think, are still the MP40. We got the recoil booster, the 04B barrel, we got the slate reflector, the folding or the remove stock, unmarked, quick, polymer, the 45 round Gorenko, incendiary, and then skeletal. And then we also have the Bren, which is still built pretty much the same. Even though they did nerf this barrel, the second damage profile is still pretty nutty and kills very fast and relatively easy to use. Mercury, 705, 36. The Queen's model or the Hawkinson, and then we have tight grip on hand, polymer, 40 round mag, the lengthen, and then the hand stop. So let me know what you guys' thoughts down in the comment section. Obviously, I left some out with only 10 loadouts. Maybe we'll get more in the future. Appreciate y'all supporting the content. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.